Hey guys, it's Faye from Solar Flow and I am back with a new video. Today's topic is a deep dive behind the veil energy read on Natalee Holloway. Natalee is a young woman that went missing in 2005 while she was on her high school graduation trip to Aruba. And since then, her body has never been found. The primary suspect in this case is a young man by the name of Joran Sloot. And she was also in the car and on the beach with two other friends of Joran by the name of Deepak and Satish Kalpo. So in this video, we're going to be looking at the energy of what happened that night, on the night that she is presumed to have died, what actually did happen to her body, as well as thereafter, we're going to be looking into the soul, spiritual, and energetic components as well. And I really encourage you guys to stick around for it because a lot of very interesting and unexpected things came through that actually have to do with us on a daily basis. Now, for anybody that is new here, if you are interested in these types of topics where we are exploring what is going on behind the three-dimensional veil, by utilizing energy reading, mediumship, astral travel, or remote viewing, I encourage you to please subscribe as well. And with that, let's get into it. So I'm going to share with you guys that I had actually looked into this just 2 days ago. And at the time that I had looked into the energy of what had gone on, I wasn't sure if I was going to do a video on it. Because first of all, it's incredibly sad. A beautiful young woman with the rest of her life in front of her disappears and the fallout that occurs because of it. And it's a kind of heavy, sad topic, and I didn't know that I wanted to share it. And then yesterday, Natalee's energy had come into me. So while I had looked into this on Tuesday night and her energy was very inviting and welcoming and I was able to get a pretty concise and clear picture of what had happened, still not sure if I wanted to share it. Yesterday, her energy had come back into me again, and with her big eyes, she was opening her eyes, looking at me and imploring me to please share this information. And that was really the turning point for me, in which I had decided, you know what? If she had come back to me the next day and was imploring and inviting the information to come in and to be shared, that I was going to. And then it was at that time last night where I had sat down to meditate again on this to see if there was anything else that wanted to come through, that Natalee had actually brought in additional information to me, in which I think made it more relevant to why she wanted me to talk about it. And that's the unexpected things that came in. And those are the things that I'm going to talk about closer to the end of the video when I've shared what happened that night, okay? So just a little bit of additional information as we get into it. And because, yes, I have about 12 pages of channeled information, I'm going to be referring to my notes. If you are not new here, you know that I tend to do this. If you are new here, please understand that a lot of information comes in and it's nearly impossible to remember it all. So I, of course, take notes and I will refer to them from time to time, but this is all my information, all channeled or shared. And let's dive in. So first and foremost, as soon as I had connected to Natalee's energy, she had shared with me that she was energetically hurt by the fact that she had died and that it still stings her to today. She showed me that she was genuinely a good girl who felt that she was taken out way too soon, because she was. And she continues to wonder what she would have been had she lived. What was she going to go on to do? Who was she going to marry? Where were they going to live? How many kids they were going to have? Who their kids would look like? And what her kids' names would be. So really, these are the things that she wonders, the things that she genuinely feels she is missing out on. Now, in addition to that, and in the addition to the wondering of what her life would have been like and her children, a lot of her remorse is central to her mother. Because thereafter, when it became apparent that her body was not going to be found and she was presumed to be dead, she spent a lot of time with her mother, while her mom would lie in bed and cry, agonizing over the pain that she felt that her mother felt that her mother could not see Natalee again, and that this made Natalee have this agonizing pain in her as well, that she could not wrap her arms around her mother and tell her mother that she was there. But she was. She spent a significant amount of time afterwards with her mother. And she also, this is Natalee sharing this, Natalee also feels she died another 1,000 times again for every night her mother had cried out for her when she could not tell her mother that she was there. Now, Natalee also wanted to share that she felt stupid and like she was fooled by Joran's good looks and boyish charm. And she acknowledges that she was stupid and naive and she was too trusting of a girl. And that additionally, she wanted to have fun and explore a different side of herself while she was on vacation. And that she wished she had never gotten into the car with the 3 boys those nights. But also to acknowledge that the reason she did get in the car and she did go to the beach with them was that she wanted to have this experience with Joran, and it was, if you will, a graduation vacation fling. So she wanted to go to the beach, she wanted to have this experience with Joran, this experience meaning sex. She wanted to try on a different version of herself while she was on vacation before she was going to go back home and resume her life. This is not who she was. This was, again, a graduation vacation fling, an experience that she was going to have before she went back to her normal life and resumed her normal life. Now, this is where I'm going to talk a little bit about what had actually happened that night and the fallout. Then we're going to get into the spiritual soul components. Now, she had shown to me that she was given something in the car. So she had met, this was not the first time, I don't believe, that she had met Joran. But I think her class was in a pub or a club that night. And I guess because this is Aruba, you can be 18 to drink. You don't have to be 21 to drink. And she had been in this club or this pub drinking that night. And her class were set to leave to go back home the following day. So the last time she was seen leaving the club, getting into a car with Joran and the Calpo brothers. And she had shared with me that when she was in the car, she was given a drug. A better way of saying it is she was offered a drug. Now, I'm also going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that it was not a roofie. Not because I've ever been roofied, not because I know what it feels like, but because I was able to energetically have the experience that Natalee was having after she took this drug. And again, I've never been roofied, but I don't think this is what a roofie feels like. Because she had her full capacities. She could walk, she could talk. She just felt like a little bit cold. But again, maybe it was because they were at that on the beach that night. And it just felt more like it enhanced the feeling of inebriation that she was experiencing. So maybe it was kind of where she was like a little bit tipsy before. Now, after she took this drug that she was offered, she felt maybe properly drunk. And maybe this is not an experience that she was used to having because, again, she was 18 and she was well below the drinking age in the United States. So maybe she had had a couple of beers that night. Maybe she had had a couple of shots. I don't really know. It enhanced the sense of the inebriation. Maybe she felt tipsy. Now she felt drunk. Now, being that I'm an older woman and I've been drunk my fair share of times, this sounds pretty accurate. It doesn't sound like being roofied, okay? If you know, you know. Not if you've been roofied and you know, but if you've been drunk, you know what that feels like. And what she was sharing to me was it felt like being drunk. Again, she could walk, she could talk, she had her full capacities. It was just an enhancement of the inebriation that she was feeling. Now, she also shared with me that when while they were still in the car, Joran was playing it a little bit cool and he was a little bit coy. So he very much understood that she went to the beach that night because she probably wanted to have sex with him. So again, this is going to kind of enhance this idea that it wasn't necessarily a roofie. He didn't have to roofie her to have sex with her. She was going there that night because she wanted to have sex with him. but that he was playing it a little bit cool and a little bit coy because he knew that she was interested in him. But she also shared with me on an energetic level, she could feel the intention, or another way of saying that is the curiosity, of the Calpo brothers. They were trying to gauge how much fun did she want to have that night. They understood she was going there because she wanted to have sex with Joran. They were trying to figure out, they were not being inappropriate, they weren't touching her, but they were trying to figure out, maybe through conversation and what they were saying or what they were talking about, they were kind of trying to gauge, like, how much fun did she want to have? Did she just want to be with Joran? Or maybe there was a possibility for, fun times 3. But she did also show me they were respectful. No one touched her inappropriately or without her consent, but it was more where she could feel the energy and intention of the Calpo brothers. They were trying to gauge where she was at. However, all of that was put to rest when they had got to the beach, because when they got to the beach, Joran had said something to them, and I'm not sure if it was in English or Dutch, but he had said something, which basically was him, like, taking claim. He was letting it be known, she was with me tonight. So then they pretended that they were going for a walk, the 2 Calpo brothers, and I saw them walking down towards the coast, like where the sand and the water meet. They walked down to it and they took a left and they started to walk away. Every once in a while, they would, kind of like look back over their shoulder. They wanted to see what was going on. I think they were also kind of wanting to check and make sure that everything was okay. That was just kind of the sense I got because of some other things that came up later on. But at the point that they had walked away, Natalee and Joran had sat down and they were sitting in the sand. Now, it was shown to me at this time that they had talked a little bit, they had flirted a little bit, and they had kissed a little bit. And that's when Joran had offered another drug to Natalee. So she was a little bit inebriated from being in the club. Whatever was given to her in the car enhanced that inebriation, and now she was given a second thing. Again, I'm going to say that it's not a roofie. They were already flirting, they were already kissing. He didn't have to roofie her for her to have sex with him. And she took it. And she took it because she was a little bit nervous about having sex with Joran, so she accepted whatever he had given her. She wanted to kind of take the edge off and relax herself a little bit more so she could do it. Again, this is very out of character for her. This was a graduation vacation fling before she went back home and went back to her life. Now, what was also shown to me at that time is that almost immediately she started to feel off. And again, just like I could feel the inebriation that she was experiencing, I was able to have the experience that she was having when she was feeling off. So a few things happened. So the first one is she started to have like a vision disturbance. And what a vision disturbance means is, imagine, if you will, like when you wake up first thing in the morning and you're blinking your eyes and you're just like starting to wake up. You know how if you like look around, you might see black spots that no matter where you look, the black spots kind of move with your eyes? It was like that, but an enhancement of that. It wasn't like these little black spots. Think of like black champagne bubbles, little black champagne bubbles. So they weren't like pin drops. They were little black champagne bubbles that wherever she would look, these black champagne bubbles would kind of like follow what she was looking at. And then she started to feel incredibly nauseous. And she wasn't like doubled over in pain. It was just more like, now she was holding her stomach. Now, again, she had felt somewhat cold earlier. So I'm going to say that probably was not unusual, because when she was given the other drug and they got out onto the beach, she was feeling cold. So now she had her hands wrapped, maybe not like around her arms, they were wrapped more around her stomach. Maybe not completely unusual. But then the sensation in her stomach turned into this god-awful nausea. It was like this pressure and this cramping, and then this burning feeling started to travel up from her stomach into her esophagus. And I can actually even feel the burning right now. It literally feels like it's traveling up. So this was at the point when it really started to travel up, that it intensified dramatically. So she's sitting, and then as soon as this burning starts to travel up, she falls back onto her back onto the sand. And so at the point that she was just holding her stomach, she was not doubled over in pain. She wasn't making any sounds. Joran was kind of talking, and he was like looking off either at the water, or he was just like looking around while he was talking. And it wasn't until that she had fallen backwards into the sand, again from a seated position, that he noticed that something was wrong. And I don't think that this was like him pretending not to know that something was actually going to be wrong. I think he genuinely was just like talking about something and not paying attention. And again, she wasn't like, oh, doubled over in pain. But at the point that she had fallen backwards, he could now no longer, like, there was something very obviously wrong with her. So it was shown to me, first of all, that she was foaming at the mouth and she was convulsing. And Joran did not know what to do, and he kind of went into a panic, and he stood up and he started calling for the Calpo brothers. And then he was also like waving his arms like this. So he really wanted to get their attention and have them come back. So maybe first, if they just thought they had heard him calling and they would turn around and maybe he was standing, it wouldn't seem to be like there was anything wrong. But he was like really excitedly like waving his arms and motioning for them to come over. So they came running back. Now, I'm obviously not a doctor, so I cannot diagnose what was going on with Natalee, but I'm going to say that I believe this is some sort of a lethal mix of the alcohol in her system with the drugs that she had taken first in the car and then second at the beach. And while this was very much an accidental death, it was fatal nonetheless. So I do not believe, based on what was shown to me, that Joran took her to the beach that night with having any intention of hurting her or killing her. He took her to the beach with the intention of having sex with her. However, good girl, never really took drugs, probably never drank before. This was a very lethal dose mixed in her system. Now, when the Calpo brothers came running over, I was shown that they genuinely, all three of them wanted to help. They didn't know what was wrong. One of the Calpo brothers thought that maybe she was choking, or maybe she had ingested drugs. They knew about the drugs she had taken in the car. They didn't know that she had taken another thing. They thought maybe like she had ingested something and she was choking. And then the other Calpo brother actually started to perform CPR on her. But all the CPR managed to do was it would spew whatever she was foaming at the mouth with. So more of it started to come up, and then it just started to like splash everywhere on her. And she couldn't talk, but she showed me that she was in a state of energetic frenzy. Her insides were burning her horribly. She felt unable to move, help, or do anything. And I'm also going to share at this point that I'm going to say she died relatively quickly. I'm going to say it was probably in under about 2 minutes. But I would say it probably was even less than that. Now, what was also shown to me was as soon as she crossed out of her body, she had screamed no, and she threw up her hands. Like, she was very, very shocked. She was very agitated. She obviously knew that she was out of her body, because imagine, if you will, you're suddenly standing up and you see your body is laying down. You're no longer in your body. You're separate from your body. So she screamed no like this, and her hands came up. There was also, as soon as she crossed out of her body, there was an older woman there. I don't know who this is. I don't know if it was a grandmother or somebody very close to her. But there was an olderish, not like an 80-year-old woman, maybe like a 60-year-old woman, but there was an olderish woman who was there as soon as she crossed out of her body, and the older woman had wrapped her arms around Natalee's shoulder, trying to comfort her. And yes, even when you're a spirit, you have some sort of a spirit body, especially if you're interacting with other spirits. Now, Natalee was desperate to get back into her body, and she was yelling at this woman and yelling at Joran and the Calpo brothers to do something. She was absolutely frantic. Now, interestingly enough, it was also shown to me at the time that and the word that came in was popped. It's almost like she popped out of her body. And at the moment that she had popped out of her body, while she was still in an energetic frenzy and desperate to get back into her body, there was also a sense of buoyancy and lightness, if you will, to the way that she was feeling. But it wasn't like, because again, she was still in a frenzy. It was more like energetically in how she felt, how she was experiencing herself. It felt more light and buoyant. So when I was channeling it, an example came in that I'll give you in a second, but another one just came in also. Imagine, if you will, the difference between blowing up a bubble, blowing a balloon, just, with your mouth on it, blowing into it, versus putting helium into that balloon. The balloon will be filled up with air if you have blown into it regularly, but it will be positively buoyant and it will float if there's helium in it. Now, she was not like floating off the floor. She wasn't levitating or anything. It's just to say that energetically her body felt lighter and freer. Now, that can happen simultaneously with her feeling like a frenzy, because in fact it did. She was desperate to get back into her body, but energetically her body felt different and lighter. Now, the way it was shown to me when I actually channeled this, and this is kind of like a weird representation, but again, if you know me and you know the way the information comes in, it comes in a way for me to make sense of it. So this is the way that it was shown to me to make sense to me. Now imagine, if you will, again, acknowledging it's going to sound weird, but imagine, if you will, you have broken out and you have a big ass motherfucking pimple the size of Mount Vesuvius on your face. And you are trying everything you can with topical solutions and ointments to dry it up, but nothing is working. It festers, it lives on. Now it's no longer red and big, but it's white, and you're looking at it and you're like, aha, it's ripe. I can actually extract the whatever is inside of it. You do whatever you do. You wash your hands, you take your paper towels, you line it up, you go to pop it, and voila, it pops. So you're going to first be experiencing this sensation of relief. Oh my God, this is great. It's out. It is free. I am free of it as well. But then imagine if right after whatever is the gunk that was inside of it that caused it to be elevated, blood starts to spew out of it. You would probably be having a mixed sense of emotions of relief that, oh my goodness, that's great, it's open. But then also it's like, what the heck? Where's all this blood suddenly coming from? So it's very much the same way that Natalee was experiencing it. It was a sense of lightness in her body, a sense of feeling free and unencumbered, but also this very real frenzy of, oh my God, I gotta get back in. It's almost like, again, you're looking at the blood spewing out and you're like, what the fuck? I wanna stop the blood from flowing. I wanna get the blood back in now that it's been extracted. Now, and again, she was too energetically frantic to notice the way that to really like pay attention to how buoyant she had felt. But it was shown to me this kind of like elevated sensation in her energetic body. Now the boys too were frantic. Joran was shown to me as pacing, and he kept saying over and over again, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Pacing frantically, like up and down next to Natalee's body, like looking like off into the distance, then looking at Natalee and then saying, oh shit. Now the Calpo brothers were on the other side of Natalee's body. They were sitting in the sand next to her body. They were shown to me as being absolutely stunned, in shock. And one of the brothers actually started to cry. He was crying. He genuinely was sad, and he was crying for Natalee and not for himself. At this point, for sure, the Calpo brothers were not thinking that they had done anything wrong and that there was going to be any potential negative blowback onto them. First and foremost, they weren't even, there whenever what had happened had happened. They left with her. They were not with her. They came over to help. They were genuinely stunned and very, very sad that this young woman had died. Joran, however, was a little bit more savvy as to what was going to happen. He understood that there was going to be significant blowback because of this. And that is why he was pacing nervously and saying, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Now, what was shown to me next was that Joran did call his father, who advised him to move the body, but not to dump the body into the water. Because if they would have dumped it into the water, there could have been a chance, first of all, that maybe it wasn't going to get swept away by the tides, or it could still be found, and they could still do like a post-mortem on it, and they can find out what happened to her. So I don't know if the father had actually advised them to where to move the body, or if like to a specific location, or if he had just said it had to be taken someplace where it was going to sink. But what was then shown to me next was that Joran actually had to convince the Kalpo brothers to help. Because again, they were not even thinking there was going to be negative blowback onto them. They were genuinely in shock and sad that this young woman had died, but they weren't thinking that they were culpable. So Joran was saying to them, look, man, look, guys, what do you think this is going to look like? No, if I go down, of course, you guys, you were here, you were in the car. Like, this is going to have a negative side effect and a negative consequence for you guys too. You got to help me here. So he had kind of verbally manipulating by insinuating that they were going to be in a significant amount of trouble if they did not help him. So they had then carried her body. I don't know. I mean, it was someplace that they could definitely carry her. It wasn't shown to me that they had put her back into the car. So I want to say, I don't know how far it was, but it was shown to me that there was someplace near the beach. There was I almost even want to say like some sort of an enclosed cave, or not fully enclosed, obviously, because they were able to access it. Think of a grotto. What's it called? A grotto, I think? A grotto? It's kind of like a bed of water that is covered, and there's multiple points of entry that you can actually get into it. And one of the points of entry was out into the sea, but then there was also a location that they could access it from the beach or from the sand. And that they had actually, that is how they had gotten her into it. They had dropped her body into one of the access points from the beach or from the sea or from cliffs or something like that. And it was a deeper point than if they would have just dragged her out into the water. And they stayed there, and they stayed until they watched her body actually sink. And then they went back to any point where they had rested her body, or any point where it looked like something had been dragged, and they had either with their hands like smoothed everything over or roughed it back up, or they had walked in it or around it to make it look like regular sand. Then thereafter, the three boys went to Joran's house to talk to Joran's father, who was, I'm not sure if he any longer is, but was a judge in Aruba. So they went back to the house to talk to him, and he kept impressing on them to say nothing, or if they had to say anything, to at least stay consistent in their story and not to change it. And he also was encouraging them not to change the facts and to say that they had left her on the beach. His line of thinking was, these three boys are going to have to take a lie detector test. And if they take a lie detector, they're not going to pass it, because if they're asked if they took Natalee anywhere, they didn't. It's not like they took her out to dinner. It's not like they took her back to someone's house. They didn't technically take her anywhere. I mean, yes, on real technicality, they took her to a cave of some sort, or some sort of a cliff near the beach. But they didn't take her from the beach. They didn't take her someplace else. So he was looking at it from a lie detector strategic point of view, not to lie. To say the last place they saw her was they had left her on the beach. But Joran was thinking this was going to make him look bad. And then he convinced the Kalpo brothers they were all going to look bad. Because what is this? 3 guys leaving a girl on the beach? No, they should have taken her back to the hotel. So even though Joran's father was encouraging them to stay the course and to say that they had left her on the beach, Joran had an honesty problem. He also has an empathy problem. That's a very bad combination. So whereas he was advised, one could say by his attorney, to say one thing, he decided, I'm going to look bad, I can't say that. This was the very, very first in a line of mistakes that was made. Because what happened is he claimed that he took her back to the hotel and he had left her with a security guard there, except that never happened. There was no security guard that could corroborate that Joran had handed Natalee off to them. First, very big mistake, because this now casts Joran into a very, very bad light. He's been caught lying. Now, even if that wasn't going to come back to bite him in his ass in a court of law, in the court of public opinion, he was already not shaken out too well. Now, he also has an empathy problem because it's a problem because he doesn't actually have any. He had no problem convincing the Calpo brothers, basically incriminating them into the cover-up, certainly, even though they were not involved in her death. He had no problem incriminating them, making them, an accessory after a crime. He had no problem lying about all of this. And a little bit later on, he didn't even have any problem attempting to extort money from Natalee's family. Because what happened a number of years later is he said he was going to, if they paid him, I think it was like $250,000, he had no problem extorting them for money and saying if they paid him $250,000, he would tell them or show them where her body was. Except the body is long gone and he knows it. But why did he extract money from them? And I don't think they paid the full $250,000. I think it was, they paid maybe like, I don't know, $25,000, and then the rest was going to be paid thereafter. What did he actually do with that money? He took that money so he could enter a poker tournament. Okay. Let's talk a little bit more about this. Let's explore who Joran is. Now, what was shown to me is after the initial shock of Natalee dying, hold on, I want to find my notes here I'm up to. So after the death of Natalee and after the initial shock had worn off, Joran realized he actually didn't care. He didn't care that Natalee had died. She was never going to go on to have all of the experiences that she was meant to have. He didn't care that her mother was never going to see her again. He actually just didn't care about any of it. And Natalee's death had unlocked something inside of Joran. Something that he had tried to suppress. An inner knowingness of something that he did not consciously want to know or recognize about himself. Which was, again, that he genuinely did not care. So this death really unlocked something deep from within, inside of him that he now felt free to embrace. It was a dark side that had been lying in wait, waiting for him to embrace it. And with this newfound feeling of acceptance of who he actually was. Like, maybe before this had actually happened, maybe he was just a liar. Maybe he got caught lying. Maybe some people even thought he was a pathological liar. Something changed in Joran, where now he was no longer the liar anymore. Something fundamental changed in him and was released in him. And I would even bet that if anybody had known him prior to this, they would have said he's different. But it wasn't different because, oh, he was with a girl when she had died. Something fundamental changed inside of him. And with this fundamental change and this feeling of not caring, genuinely, truly not caring that she had died, was also a reemergence of arrogance on his part, where he truly believed he was going to get away with it. Now, I'm going to say him truly believing he was going to get away with it was not necessarily connected to the fact that his father was a judge and maybe this was an influential family. This was more connected to Joran. And this was also not connected to his father advising him what to say. This was true arrogance on his part. He was looking around at his perceived ineptitude of the police and feeling like they're fucking idiots. I got away with this. Now, I can't honestly tell you if the police truly were inept or if they were inept, consciously inept, because this was an influential family and they were trying to protect them. This is Joran sharing what he had thought, which was very arrogantly, the police were inept. He had nothing to worry about. It was a perceived belief that the police were bumbling idiots, which had only solidified his belief that he was smarter than anyone else. So maybe before he was suspicious that he was smarter than everyone else, but now that he was watching the way the police were handling this, and it convinced him that he was smarter than everybody else. He was arrogant. Arrogance had been released from him. Just like Natalee had popped out of her body and had this energetic, buoyant sense, this arrogance had been popped out from deep inside of him. Hold on. I'm sorry, guys. I repeated my notes, actually. I wrote two things twice, and I'm actually just realizing it right now, which was, again, I'll say it. I guess it bears mentioning twice, and that's why I wrote it twice. So whereas Joran's father had routinely told them to say that they had left her on the beach, because technically then they wouldn't be lying, and he was looking at it from the lie detector point of view, it was Joran's belief that would only make him look bad, and that is why he had decided to say that they had actually dropped her off at the hotel, which again was proven to be false and cast him in a very negative light. Now, what was then next shown to me is that the Kalpo brothers at least really did keep their mouth shut. And that is because they were operating without the arrogance that Joran felt, and they were genuinely scared. He was not. They were. Again, he was arrogant. They were not. He was looking at what the police were doing and perceiving them to be bumbling idiots and feeling far superior to them. Now, again, as I was mentioning to you before, Joran had extracted money from Natalee's family. And what was it done for? Again, it was to attend a poker tournament. Interesting. Now, he had also taken money from them without having any intention of leading them to the body. Now, he had, knowing fully well that the body was gone and he wasn't going to show it to them, he wanted to get some money from them so he could go attend this poker tournament in Peru. And when he was in Peru at this poker tournament, he met a young woman by the name of Stephanie Flores Ramirez. And this was, I believe, in 2010. So this was 5 years after the disappearance of Natalee Holloway, in which something that had been on a conscious level on a conscious level, something had been released from inside of him. This newfound arrogance, a feeling of omnipotence, a feeling of even the police are fucking idiots. I'm getting away with this. So he had come to a fork in the road. Was he going to continue the path, or was he going to make a different choice? If you're not familiar with what choice he took, here it comes. As the expression goes, the postman rings twice. That, I believe, is the name of a movie, literally where I think a postman rings twice. I haven't seen the movie. But it is now also an expression that is used to relay this idea that if you want to know who somebody is, just wait. They will show you. You want to know who someone is, don't listen to the words that they say, look at the actions that they do. That will tell you everything that you need to know. So Joran was involved in, even if it was something he wasn't going to admit to, even if it was something that he wasn't going to say had happened to her, and I know his story has changed many, many times over the years of what had actually happened. I think at one point he had even said like he sold her into like sex slavery, like, really? But you want to know who Joran is? So he was involved in the disappearance of Natalee Holloway, and then when he was at this poker tournament in Peru, he had either gone back to Stephanie's hotel room or Stephanie had gone back to his hotel room. She ended up dead. And what was shown to me had happened is that while she thought he was napping, she had gone through his stuff, and he had seen her done this, and he had gone into a fit of rage and he had killed her. I don't know what she was looking for. It could have been a lighter because she wanted to smoke a cigarette. Maybe she wanted to rob him. Whatever it was, she was going through his stuff, and I don't mean like the safe. Like, imagine he had taken off his pants and his pants were like slung over a chair. She was just going into the pockets and looking at what was in the pockets. I mean, this is not like a grave offense, but he flew into a fit of rage and he killed her. The postman rings twice. What are the fucking odds you're involved in the death of not one woman, but two women? I would say it's pretty fucking low. In his case, pretty fucking high. The postman rang twice. Because this is who Joran is. Low energetic person. Low vibration. Low dense energy. Now he knew that he was going to be in a shit ton of trouble. So I think I don't think he tried to like conceal it. I think he put up like the do not disturb on the door, and then he tried to get out of Peru, but I do believe he was actually obtained in South America somewhere. Now, at the point that this information was coming in, Natalee rolled her eyes and shook her head because she had let me know it hardly tempers the pain of her own life being gone, even though he was finally caught. She does feel incredibly bad for Stephanie's family and knows what they are going through because of her own mother and what her mother went through. And this is where she actually showed me that her and her mother were always incredibly close. But she had no idea how much her mother actually loved her until she had crossed over. And because while she is on the other side, in the presence of God's divine love, did she come to understand the motherly love that her mother has for her. She shared her deepest regret was getting in the car that night, and that she did it because she was young and stupid and now believes that being young and stupid is a curse. She also had indicated to hug your babies every night because you don't know when will be the last time that you may see them. Now, this is where we're going to get more into the soul, spiritual, and energetic components, which I think is truly just as, if not more important than what actually happened that night and in the years thereafter. Now, Natalee had shown to me that she is very accepting of the energetic component and that she had to lower her personal vibration and energy to line up and to be a vibrational match with him. Because look at it this way. So first of all, this is, again, very out of character for her. This was not the kind of person that she is going around having, hooking up with guys and having like random one-night stands. Genuinely a good girl. This was, again, if you will, her vacation fling. But in actuality, her and Joran were not really energetic matches for one another. And this is an example I've given before, and I'm going to give it again. I'm going to actually use the crystals that are on my lap to display this point. Now imagine my crystals are magnets. And you know with magnets, if one, they're facing the same pole, I don't even know how this works. If they're facing the same direction and they're aligned, then when they're facing it and you start to bring them towards one another, they'll like be pulled together and they'll click into place. But imagine, if you will, you turn one of the crystals around and now it's not in alignment with the other crystal. What will actually, the other magnet, it will actually repel the magnet. So whereas before you brought them towards one another, they were drawn, they would connect, there would be an audible click. Now you've turned one of them away, it's facing the opposite direction, it's now going to act as a repellent. So where this one starts to come closer, it's going to repel and push the other magnet away. But when you are vibrationally aligned, you'll come together and you'll connect. That is very much what happened in this case. This is not an indication of who Natalee was. She lowered her vibration to go in the car in that night and to go with the boys. Maybe it was because she was also slightly inebriated, which I've talked about too. All of those things, right? Those things that are going to lower your personal vibration. Now, she also shared she was too eager to have this experience that she wouldn't have at home. And then she also admitted, like, boy, did he give it to her. But she was too eager to have this experience. And that's why she had lowered her own personal energetic blueprint and vibration to be an energetic match with Joran. Okay, now this is wild. This was also shown to me as the creation of new karma. These are two souls that did not have any previous karmic shit to work through. Brand new fucking karma was created that night. And as we've kind of explored in some of the other videos, when someone perhaps may die by the hands of another, it doesn't just have to be like murder in the first degree. It could even be like a soldier out at war. When something like that happens, as we have seen time and again, it has tended to kind of come up as it being karmic shit, where these two souls had to come together because of things that have happened in their past incarnations. They came together this perhaps one last time, and now the slate is wiped clean. There is no more karmic shit to work through. Their souls are now free from one another, and they do not have to come back into any future incarnations and work through their accumulation of energetic karmic reverberations. That is not the case here. This was the creation of brand new karma. These two souls had no previous energetic tags, no previous energetic shit to work through, but they do now. Because yes, new karmic shit can be created all the time. Now, this was, while Natalee is taking her part in it and saying she had to lower her energetic vibration to be aligned with Joran, this was also an opportunity for him on a soul level to be a wake-up call for Joran. Because as we have always said, free will reigns supreme. He had, in that moment, the opportunity to make a different choice. Not just by taking Natalee out of the club or pub that night, not just by offering her something in the car, but by offering her something on the beach. So every opportunity, or every moment is a new opportunity, if you will, to make a completely different choice, even if we don't understand the full potential for the ramifications of those choices that we make. So this was meant to be a wake-up call for Joran to make better choices, because why? He was now in the presence of somebody that was more energetically high vibration than he was. So he was given the opportunity to make a different choice and completely, potentially change the trajectory of his life. It continues to get wilder. I mean, if you're here this far, you're going to probably stay till the end. It gets wilder still. So he had free will when he offered her the drugs, just like she had free will to get into the car that night. So what is, first of all, the underlying message in all of this that had come through? We truly write our soul's stories through the choices that we make. So let's make good ones. That's first and foremost. Second, again, while this is the creation of new karma, it is because Natalee had lowered her own personal vibration to be a vibrational match with Joran, so that they would have clicked. Otherwise, again, as I had shown you before, the magnets would have been repelled by one another. But here they had actually clicked. So this is, first of all, and I wrote in big letters, this is not victim blaming. I'm certainly not blaming Natalee, because again, I'm looking at the soul and energetic component behind the choices that were made that night. And this was her soul coming in to share with me that she acknowledges she had lowered her energetic vibration to be a vibrational match with Joran that night. So this is not victim blaming, but an indication that we attract the experiences we long to have, or that we are a vibrational match for. And this is, again, why I say at the end of every single video, stay in the high vibration. Because the higher the vibration that you yourself are personally in, you're only going to be an energetic match for other high vibration people, places, experiences, things. She had to lower her vibration to be a vibrational match with him. Through the lowering of her own personal vibration to be a match, it presented Joran with the opportunity to make a different choice. But did he take it? And this is what was actually shown to me. This was giving Joran a glimpse into the kind of life that he could have if he would have elevated himself, if he would have made different choices. It's not, I mean, yes, it was obviously in that moment that he gave her the second drug, but it gave him a glimpse of other choices that he could have made differently, or that he, even thereafter, that he could have made differently. He was given the opportunity in that moment to make a different choice. How many moments did he have thereafter that he was given similar choices to make, but he did not choose to elevate his own personal vibration through those choices? So yes, it was very much shown to me that this was giving Joran a glimpse into the kind of life that he could have had if he would have chosen to elevate himself at that moment or any other point thereafter, right? He also chose to try to extort the money of family. So he could have met a nice girl like Natalee, and he could have had a nice normal life. However, because he didn't make different choices and he continued down that same path, he was not a vibrational match for it, even when he saw it and he had had the brief opportunity to interact with it. Think of it this way, like a moth drawn to a bright light. Once they get to the bright light, they almost don't know what to do other than to fly around it in a fucking frenzy. This is very much the same way. And it was also shown to me that even if he would have married a nice girl, and he would, it would have been a lie. Because that's his vibration. He would have been bored and he would have cheated on her because that's his vibration. He would ruin what good he did have and he would sully it. He would take vows with no intention of keeping them, and then he would bring down the energy of whomever he was with. This is a destructive force. And again, free will reigns supreme. At any point, not just on that night, at any point thereafter, he could have made different choices. The death of Natalee just unlocked something deep and fundamental inside of him. But he still had free will. He still could have made different choices. He chose not to. And this, it's interesting because this was also actually kind of like shown to me. If you look back at pictures from 2005, he looked to be very, very innocent. He did have the young, innocent look about him. Fast forward to when he was arrested for the murder of, what was her name? Stephanie Flores Ramirez. 5 years later or so, I believe. He didn't have that innocence about him anymore. He looked hard. And it was because of all of the choices that he had made in those years that had completely changed him energetically and on a vibrational level. And that started to manifest on what we saw in his body and in his appearance. Here's another one that you can kind of look at. Look at when O.J. Simpson was first arrested for the murder of Nicole Brown Simpson. He was young then, right? His hair was dark, he was slender, he was skinny, he was still hot. He still had it. But then when he was arrested, I don't know how many years later, but those years later, he was arrested for holding somebody hostage because this person had his stuff legally acquired and was trying to sell it for a profit. But it was his shit. And he didn't want people touching his shit. So he held this person with a gun hostage and didn't let this person leave. And then look at the picture of when he was arrested that time. Those years later, it was a different OJ. He was older. He wasn't chiseled. He wasn't good looking. His face was puffy and bloated. His hair was gray. It was a different person, but it was years later. What happened to Joran was a very, very rapid decline in a short number of years. And that is because of the numerous choices that he made at any given moment that he continued to stay on the path that he was on instead of changing it. Again, we do truly write our soul's stories with the choices that we make on a day-to-day basis. But we can make good choices and we can completely change the trajectory of our life. Now, I'm actually even going to share, because this is going to come up a little bit later on, I'm going to share with you an example of one of the choices that I had to make in my life where I took a different path and it completely changed the trajectory of my life. Now, as I had shared in the video on Balenciaga, that I had been, I believe this is back in like 2008, I had been saving up for a Chanel bag. I'm not a 1%er. I don't have like the funds that I could, especially not at that time, that I could just go out and buy. I think the bag was then, I remember, and now I don't even know how much it is now, but then I think it was like $2,600. Okay, I was saving up for the classic black folder, medium-sized Chanel bag. Back in 2008, it was $2,600. I remember because I was saving up for it. Now, at some point while I was saving up, I had a fork in the road. I could continue to save that money for the bag, or I could apply that money towards a yoga teacher training that I wanted to do. And I decided at that time that I no longer wanted that bag. I wanted to be a yoga teacher. I came to a fork in the road. What were the choices? Continue to save for this bag, buy this bag. Maybe that would have put me on a different path and a different trajectory of wanting three-dimensional luxury items. Maybe I would have had that bag and I would have been like, hot damn, yeah, there really is something to these luxury items. I'm going to keep saving for luxury items. Instead, I decided to take that money and allocate it towards a spiritual pursuit. Completely changed the course of my life. It took me away from the three-dimensional into something of a higher energetic and a higher dimensional vibration. Maybe that's part of the reason that I am here today doing what I'm doing. Now, even though that this had happened back in 2008, it was really one step in a number of steps that had led me to being on the path that I am on right now, right? It wasn't like I did one yoga teacher training and I was like, I am an ascended guru now. I have all the answers. No, I did one, then I decided I wanted to do a second, and then of course after I did two, I had to do 3 yoga teacher trainings, then I had to become a Reiki practitioner. So it really changed the course of my life. It put me on a totally different timeline, even if you will, one that was of spiritual pursuits. So again, yes, even if we don't understand in the moment when we're making choices that they can change the course of our life, they very much can, and at any single given moment. Joran did not become a hardened looking criminal in 5 years' time just because time passed. It was the accumulation of all of the choices that he had made that led him to that point. Go back and look at the pictures of him. Your mind will be blown. Now, something interesting also had come up, which was that, as I had shared at the beginning, when Natalee had come back to me yesterday with her big eyes open, looking at me expectantly as if, are you going to talk about this? Are you going to share my story? I actually became aware of the fact that she hadn't spoken to me. None of the information that she had shared was through verbal communication. Now, this within itself is not really remarkable because especially if you guys have been watching my videos, you know the way that the information can come in can be any number of ways. It's energetically, where I'm reading the energy, or I'm seeing I'm feeling the emotions that the person was experiencing, or I can kind of tap into the energy of the people that were around, or I've astral travel, or I remote view, or they'll show me something. They'll show me like a picture, or they'll relate it to something like a movie. It's not remarkable. It's just to say that when she had come in with her big eyes open looking at me, that it's like I actually realized, like, wait a minute, actually, she hasn't spoken to me once. So I asked her, I said, Natalee, is there a reason that you haven't spoken? And she showed me, because again, she didn't speak to me, she showed me why she wasn't talking. And she did this. She tapped on her throat and then she shook her head to indicate that she could not or would not speak. Now, this is the soul essence of Natalee. This is not obviously her physical body. Her soul's essence was showing me that she could not or would not speak. Now, this is what I believe had actually happened. That whatever she was given, and if you go back and or remember what I had said earlier on, it started in her stomach and it kind of moved up. And there was this burning sensation coming up, right? It was burning, it was building up, it was coming up until it was in her throat, and then she started foaming at the mouth. And then when the CPR was done, she started spewing it out. So I believe that whatever was going on at that time had actually burned her throat. The throat of the body of that person named Natalee. So this was shown to me that she was energetically branded by this. Now, what does it mean to be branded? I think like farmers or cowboys, they'll actually do this with their cattle. They'll brand their cows. Either they'll put like a tag on them with a cow number. Maybe it's even like a tracking device. I don't even really know. That's one way that you can brand cattle. There was also a cult that physically branded the cult members with branding irons. They would tattoo onto the women that were in the cult. That's another version of branding. Those are physical examples of what branding is. This is an energetic branding. She was energetically branded by this, and this is likely going to carry over into future incarnations. And this is so wild. I told you, it continues to get wilder and wilder. So if you look at it this way, this is the way that phobias can actually develop. But it's not a phobia to something that is happening something that happened in that particular incarnation. Like it can, for example, be, again, I'll use myself as an example. So for many, many years, I'm not going to say I like them, but like if there's a spider, I'll kill it now. In the past, I would never even kill a spider. I would lose my fucking shit and someone else would have to kill it. That is something from this lifetime. I grew up with older brothers. My older brothers wanted to go see the movie Arachnophobia. I remember this like it was yesterday. I wanted to see the movie Harry and the Hendersons. But being the youngest and the only girl, I lost. So I was taken to see Arachnophobia when I was probably way too young to see a movie all about spiders, and it left a very, very big indentation and an impression on me, and that's why for many years I was afraid of spiders. That's an example of something in a lifetime that can cause a phobia in a lifetime. But phobias can also carry through from previous incarnations. And I'm going to prove it to you. Just like I had shared a few moments ago, I got to a fork in the road where I could take the money I was saving up for a Chanel bag, or I could go do a yoga teacher training. I chose a different path. And at my second yoga teacher training, we were working on because here's the thing, you're not just taught how to teach yoga, it involves a lot of practicing of yoga as well. And we were doing a forearm balance workshop. And for anyone who doesn't know what a forearm balance is, you can after you watch this video, you're welcome to go online and look at pictures. But it's essentially not a headstand where you're standing on your head. It's not a handstand where you're standing on your hands. It's where you're actually balancing your body on your forearms. So your forearms are on the floor. Your head is not on the floor. You are looking at your hands, pressing your arms into the floor, and then you kick one foot up. And the idea is to find the balance. So one foot goes up and over, and the other foot, like imagine you're making a split with the legs, okay? So balancing on your forearms with your head off the floor, looking at your hands, you kick one foot up, one foot goes over your head, the other foot goes that way. Okay. Unremarkable. Except when we were practicing this, I would lose my shit. I would get so fucking freaked out when I would try to get into it that first and foremost, when I would try to kick over, I would intentionally not kick strong enough because I didn't want my legs to go over. I was really, really afraid. Or as I would press into the floor and I would kick up, I would get so overwhelmed at the thought of actually doing it that I would topple over. When I would go to the wall to do it, because you can actually practice these things at a wall, not like in the middle of the room, I was terrified. And my yoga teacher training my yoga teacher, my guru, would actually observe this going on with me. And he came over one day and he said to me, a fear like this, maybe you broke a neck maybe you broke your neck in a previous lifetime. And that stayed with me. This was back in 2010. That stayed with me. I didn't think about it in that moment, but I always remembered it. So that way, a few years later, when I actually started to do past life regressions, I had the opportunity to go and see the lifetime in which I did, in fact, break my neck. Now, it's probably a little better now. I'm afraid of heights. Like, I will never go bungee jumping. I'll never jump out of a fucking airplane. Like, if you want to take me to like some beautiful scenic place, like I might go kicking and screaming. I might not even get out of the car when we get there. I have a fear of heights. And what came up when I had done this past life regression was I went back to the life where I did in fact break my neck. I had fallen off of a cliff. Such a stupid way to go. But in that incarnation, I was at a very, very great height and I fell off of a cliff from that great height and I broke my neck. And that combines the fear of heights with the absolute fear and terror that I felt when I was trying to do this forearm stand, because it triggered in me something that on a soul level I had experienced in a previous life. It was where my neck was broken. It was triggered, very real in this incarnation, but had nothing to do with this incarnation. It actually had to do with a previous life. This is the way in which some phobias can develop. This is also why some therapy does not work for everybody. Because regular therapy is not actually going to address the root cause of the issue if there is no knowledge of what that root cause is. And again, the root cause is not something in this incarnation, it's carried through from a previous incarnation. You want to know more about this? Go read the book, Many Masters, Many Lives by Brian Weiss. Brian Weiss was a regular therapist, and a woman had come to him who was falling apart, who had so many phobias and so many fears that it was interfering with her ability to live on a day-to-day basis. And after treating her as her therapist, after her being in therapy for so long and not making any real progress, he wanted to hypnotize her and see if there was perhaps something that was causing it that she didn't have any recollection of. But through the process of hypnotizing her, what actually started to come through were instances and occurrences from previous lives that had left an energetic branding on her that had carried through into that incarnation, that were haunting her and causing her to live in this way. But again, it wasn't because of something from that lifetime, it was previous lifetimes. It was previous unresolved traumas that she didn't have a conscious memory of, but she had a soul memory of it. And it was only through the past life regressions was this woman able to make real strides and able to stop going to therapy altogether, because she was finally able to know on a soul level what had happened to her and why she had all of these phobias that were manifesting in her reality. So if you too are not maybe making headway with traditional therapy, seriously, maybe try a past life regression. Now, as it pertains to Natalee, what was shown to me was, because she has been energetically branded by this, and there has been this creation of new karma between her and Joran, it can possibly show up in future incarnations, as she could be someone with a delay in speaking, someone that is exceptionally quiet or who does not speak a lot. She could also have phobias pertaining to choking, or that she will only sip water for the fear that drinking too much will cause her to choke. Because that's the way phobias can manifest. They can carry through from lifetime to lifetime. Now, again, I want to wrap this up, not by talking about phobias. Even though, yes, phobias are real and they can have very, very real lasting impacts on how we live and the quality of our life. I'm going to encourage you again, Many Masters, Many Lives by Dr. Brian Weiss. But really, because I want to just discuss this idea that in every moment, whether or not we are conscious of this idea that the choices that we are making can impact the rest of our life, but they can. And maybe it's only at some future point when we look back that we can say, oh my God, I see it now. Holy fucking hell. Again, It was the decision to do a yoga teacher training and not buy a Chanel bag that led me to then also heal part of my trauma from previous lives in the recognition and the understanding that I did break a neck in a previous life, but that I can heal that through the awareness of it. So even the most banal, insignificant choices that we feel we have, that we can make at any given time, we truly write our soul's stories with the choices that we make. So any given time when you're faced with two choices, go with the choice that is of a high vibration, because that choice alone can very, very well and very easily change the course of your life. Joran van der Sloot did not become a hardened looking criminal in 5 years because time passed. It was because of all of those little choices along the way that led to him settling into the low vibration. He was faced with high vibration choices that he could have made at any given time. Natalee, I'm sure, was just one of many of them. But that was to show him a different outcome for his life if he would have made a different choice. And he had many such opportunities along the way to make different choices. We too have the ability in any given moment, even if the choice seems banal, we can change the entire course of our life by choosing the high vibration choice. So I hope, guys, that as always, you have found this video to be interesting or informative or thought-provoking. Maybe, yes, now you even understand more fully while I'm always encouraging you to stay in the high vibration. When you're in that high vibration, if you do not lower it, you are not an energetic match for anything that is of a low, dense vibration. You will only draw into you and attract to you other high vibration people, experiences, and things. So yes, as always, stay in your high vibration.